Good morning, this is your Math Sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is a warm-up on whether the relation is a function, non-function, and we're also supposed to give the domain and range of each, and we got four problems. So first off, does the graph represent a function? Well, the easiest way is to do the vertical line test. Does my vertical line hit more than 1 point? And every single time I draw a vertical line, I'm only hitting 1 point here. So yes, this is a function. So yes, the answer is yes. Why? No x repeats. So let's take a look at this. What are our values? We have -4. We'll do this in red. Our x's, -4, +5. Then we have -2, +4. This one's tricky. Be careful. We didn't go anywhere in the x direction, so 0, but we went up 3 in the y directions. We have a +2, +4. And then here we have a +4, +5. Now, if we're looking at this, we go, well, you know what? I have my fours repeat, and also my fives repeat. But it's okay for the y's to repeat. None of the x's do. So this is, in fact, a function because no x repeat. We're not worried about the y. So the domain, order of smallest to greatest, and we have -4, -2, 0, 2, 4. For the range, we have smallest to largest. Smallest number is 3. Next smallest is 4. Next smallest is 5. And please remember, we do not record repeats. So there we are in order from least to greatest. The next graph, my vertical line only hits 1. Vertical line hitting 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. So far, it's a function. Uh-oh. We have a uh-oh. We hit 2 points. So the answer is no, it does not represent a function. And let's keep going. Make sure we don't have any others. And the reason it's not a function is because x equals 2. No, it's not a function because x equals 2 repeats. Remember, the x's cannot repeat. So we go back. What are our values so that we can list our domain and range? Well, we have a -5, -1, -2, -3. And by the way, on these, the graphs aren't perfect, so you're going to have to count them out. So -3, and by the, wow, -1, -2. Then we have a -2, +1. And here we have a 2, -2. And we also have a 2, +2. And this right here, the fact that these x's repeat, the x equals 2 is what we said. That's why it is not a function. Then we have a 4, 3. And we also have a 5, -1. All right. Remember, when we list the domain and range, we do not write repeats. So we have -5, -3, -2, 2, 4, 5. I only wrote the 2 once because we don't record repeats. When we're listing these, we have to be in order from least to greatest. All right, so we need to be careful here. So my least is -3. Let's check that off. Then my next one is -2, and we have a couple of those, so let's check those both off. Then we have a -1. Then we have a +1, a 2, and a 3. So that takes care of that. All right. the mappings. And once again, I did not label them X and Y. It's a bad habit I have. So we're mapping 0 to 1. Okay. 1 to 2. 3 to 2. Then we get to the 5 to 9. And then we get to the 8. 8 to 2. 8 to 9. Is it a function? And the answer is no. And the reason it's a no, it's a no. X equals 8 repeats. All right, it's asking for our domain 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. Always ordered least to greatest. And then our range 1. That's our smallest. Then we have 2. And it looks like we have a couple of those. We check those off. And then we have 9. Again, we don't record repeats. So 1, 2, 9. The next one, let's do our, once again, then label the X's, X and Y's. Got a bad habit of that. So 1, 2, 2, 8, 3, 2, 7, 2, 8, 2. And I look at this and I have a whole bunch of repeats over here, but they're Y's, so we don't care. When I look at the X's, there are no repeats. So the answer is yes, this is the function as a function because X does not repeat. So it is a function. Listing our domain 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8. That's in order from least to greatest. And then our range 2, and we have a bunch of them. We check those off. The only thing we have left is an 8. So there's our range. Okay, so that was discrete functions and mappings. Now we're going to work with continuous relations. When we see the word continuous, that's connected. All right. So is the graph below discrete or continuous? It's connected together, so it is continuous. All right. Use a vertical line test to determine if this relation is a function. Well, anywhere I draw a line, how many points am I hitting? I hit it once. I hit it once. I hit it once. Anywhere I'm drawing, I'm only hitting it once. So yes, it passes the vertical line test. Why? Because no X repeats. So yes, it is a function because no X repeats. All right. Please remember domain is the X value, Y is the range is the Y values. And when we were doing inequalities, we had less thans and greater thans. Less thans will have a whole symbol, and greater than or equal to will be a solid line or a solid dot. So use greater than or less than or equal to for the solid endpoint, in other words, this, and use the hollow for less than or greater than. So it says give the domain and range. And by the way, this is a bit tricky. So give the domain and give the domain and range, and it says record the points furthest left and furthest to the right, because the left direction is left and right is X and Y. I mean, is the X axis. So left and right, this is our X axis. So what is farthest to the left and farthest to the right? Well, if I have another color, and yes, I do. Hope it's not dried out. Well, furthest to the left is the point -8, -5. And furthest to the right is 9, 9. All right. Domain is about the x's. So really right now, I just care about the x values. I don't care about the y values. So we only really care about the x's. And when I look at this point has that. This one over here has a hollow. I'm going to zoom up just a little bit. Maybe. That didn't work too well. It's a little bit better. All right. So that's what we have. And we know that we're going to have our lowest value is -8. X is going to be in the middle. And this 9 is going here. So -8, that's our x. 9 is our other x. And we always go with the smallest on the left. Well, because this is a solid, it gets to the less than or equal to. Because this is a hollow, it gets that symbol. So -8 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 9, or is less than 9. -8 is less than or equal to x is less than 9. And that's, again, that's because this is a solid and that's a hollow. So now it wants us to do the same thing for the range. All right. So going with the range, I'm going to look at my lowest point. It says highest and lowest, but really we should probably swap that. Instead of highest and lowest, swap this order and go with lowest and highest. Well, what's my lowest point? Well, my lowest point is -8, -5. We already know that. And my highest point is back over here at 9, 9. So my highest point is at 9, 9. So this is my x, and this is my y, and this is my x, and this is my y. Now, domain, we cared about the x's. That's all we cared about. Range, we're going to care about the y values. So that's what we care about. So what's my lowest y? Well, because whatever the smallest y is what we're going to record first. So we're going to write -5, leave a space, y, and then my highest y is 9. Well, when we look at the graph, what did we have here? We had a solid for this point, so this is going to have a solid. And up here we had a hollow. So if it's a solid, we're going to use the less than or equal to. And if it's a hollow, we use a less than, no line. And that's our answer for that. So that's our range. And this right here is our domain. So let's try a couple of these. Okay. So does the graph represent a function? Well, first off, vertical line test. I can only hit it one spot. Anytime I drew a line, I was only hitting one point. So yes, y, no x or p. Okay, so list the domain and range. Well, first off, domain is going to be, I'm going to put D left to right. Left to right every single time. So what's farthest to the left? Well, farthest to the left is at -3. So we know we're going to start off at -3. And we also know at -3, and the point is -3, 4, and it has a solid endpoint. And we're going left to right, and furthest to the right is 3, -4. So, and it also has a solid point. So that's our X and Y. But remember, we're doing domains, so we really only care about the X's. So that means my domain is going to look like this. The smallest value is -3, leave a space X, leave a space 3. Because it's a solid endpoint, because I have a solid here, this is a less than or equal to, and this is a less than or equal to, and that's our domain. Our range. Okay, we're starting out with the range, started at the bottom, now we here. So we always start at the bottom, and then we go to the top. Well, the smallest value here, the one that's lowest down, is at 3, -4. So we're going to write down 3, -4. And then the top one is at -3, +4. And once again, this is my X, this is my Y, this is my X, this is my Y. So with that said, since it's the range, we only care about the Y values. Well, what's my smallest Y value? Well, it's -4. So in this case, -4, leave a space Y, leave a space +4. There's my smallest, there's my largest, Y in the middle. Now, I have a solid endpoint and a solid endpoint, so both of these are less than or equal to's. That's my range. So the next one, does the graph represent a function? All right, this one's a lot trickier, okay? So first off, does it represent a function? I draw the vertical line. No. Why? Because X repeats. And then it repeats a lot. Okay, so it repeats here, here, here. It repeats at a bunch of places. All right? So domain. Remember, domain is left to right. Range is bottom to top. I'm going to write that out. Bottom to top. So let's do the domain first. Well, what is my value furthest to the left? It's not perfect, but it's supposed to get all the way to -2. So I'm going to say that my point here is right here at -2, 1. All right, because that looks like where the line is the furthest. So my point is -2, 1. Now that's a solid line. If it's a dashed line, it gets a hollow, but if it's a solid line, it gets a solid. So it gets a solid because it's a solid line. Now, what's furthest to the right? Well, be careful, that's not furthest to the right. This point right here is furthest to the right, and it's at 4, -4. And it has a hollow. So once again, we're dealing with our X's and Y's. And keeping that in mind, with that being our X's and Y's, we're working with domains, so all we care about are the X's. So we're going to write down -2, that's our smallest X. Then we're going to leave a space X, and then we're going to leave a space and then write 4, because that's our largest X value. Now, this one has a solid, so it gets a less than or equal to. Be careful, this one has a hollow right there, that's a hollow, so it gets a less than value. Okay? The range. All right? So now we started at the bottom. Because we started at the bottom, now we hit. So my range looks like it's at, my lowest value looks like it's at -4, 4. So -4, 4. And be careful, it has a hollow, so we need to mark it a hollow. All right. And then my highest value we didn't use before, it's this one. It's at 3 comma 4. I'm sorry, I wrote this wrong. This is at 4 negative 4. And this is at 3 comma 4. That point. 3 comma 4. And it has a solid. So this is my X, this is my Y, this is my X, this is my Y. But we're dealing with range. So all we care about are the Y values. Well, my smallest Y value is negative 4. And that's less than or equal to, excuse me, it's negative 4, leave a space Y, and then 4 is my largest value. Well, this has a hollow. Be careful. I should have highlighted that in yellow. I got some pink on it. So that's a less than. This is a solid. So that's a less than or equal to. Have you noticed that on almost all of these, we're just using less than symbols, either less than or equal to? That's going to be pretty typical. Not all the time, but that's going to be pretty typical. All right, continuing on to our last two problems. Does the graph represent a function? Well, when I go to the vertical line test, it's like, yes, it does. And by the way, this graph shifted a little bit on me. I didn't realize it had. So this is going to be my point. So these are my points. All right. Sorry it shifted, but it did. Okay. And remember, domain is left to right, range, bottom to top. So starting with the domain, what's furthest to the left? Well, furthest to the left appears to be at negative 2, 4. So negative 2, 4 is furthest to the left. And I look at it and it has a hollow. Furthest to the right is at positive 2, 4. And it also has a hollow. Okay. So with that said, don't forget X, Y, X, Y. It's domain. All we care about are those X's. So my smallest X is negative 2. Leave a space X. 2 is the largest. But we have hollows on both of these, so these are both less than. So there's my domain. My range. All right. So with my range, my lowest value is 0 because we started at the bottom. So my lowest value is at 0. Matter of fact, it's at 0, 0. And that has a solid line. A solid line means it's a solid dot. And my highest value, well, I have two high values. All right. My highest values happen to be negative 2 and 4 and 2 and 4. So that's my top value. Well, if you notice, both of these are a 4. So we know it's going to be 4. And both of them have a hollow. All right, both of them have a hollow. So with that being the case, once again, we label our X's and our Y's. All we care about is the Y values. And we go, oh, well, this one is 0. And these two are the same, so it doesn't matter which one we choose. So with that being the case, 0, Y, 4, This one has a solid, so it's a less than or equal to. This one has a hollow, so it's a less than. Okay. Does the graph represent a function? Oh, I'm sorry. Does the graph represent a function? Yes. X does not repeat. Does this graph represent a function? No. The vertical line test, it fails it. No, because X repeats. All right. So list the domain and range. Well, once again, domain, left to right. So furthest to the left. Looks like furthest to the left is this solid line right here, about -3, -1. So it looks like we have a -3, -1. It's a solid line, so it gets a solid dot. Okay, furthest to the right. Looks like it occurs at 5, -1. And it's a solid line, so it gets a solid dot. So this is my X, this is my Y, this is my X, this is my Y. We're dealing with domain, so all we care about are the X's. So we have -3, leave a space X, leave a space 5, and solid. And remember, solids are going to get the less than or equal to sign. So -3 is smaller than X, is smaller than or equal to 5. All right, range. All right, so the range, we start at the bottom. We started at the bottom, now we go to the top. All right, so what's my lowest value? Well, looks like my lowest value is at about -5, -1. And my highest value, and by the way, solid line, so that means it gets a solid dot. And it looks like my highest, oops, wrong color. Boy, I keep writing these backwards. It's horrible. So let me try that again. Looks like my lowest value is at 1, -5. I apologize for that. It looks like my highest value is at 1, +3. Again, solid line, so it gets a solid dot. This is my X, this is my Y, this is my X, this is my Y. All we care about are the Y values. So my smallest Y is -5. We leave a space, we write Y. My largest value is 3. And solid dot, solids, get that. Please remember, solids, whether it's a solid line or not, gets this. Hollow gets one of these. All right. Hope this helps. Please forgive the mistakes. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.